dear friends. Oh, am I on? Yeah. Hello, dear friends. Kara here. I felt I wanted to make this video so that I could better communicate with all my loved ones my position regarding the world's current situations. This is coming out of a place of deep love and care and a desire to enlighten and also because I feel I need to be a little bit defensive because I'm being called insensitive and selfish, and these are and judgmental. And these are things that I normally my character is very far from these things, and yeah, I guess I am a little bit judgmental and insensitive in some ways now because I've lost my patience. Because of the amount of unnecessary pain that's being imposed across the planet. The truth is that the people of this earth are being psychologically terrorized. And there's a very dark agenda behind this, and the medias and the governments are all in on it, and we the people need to stand up and say, no, you don't have the power over our minds. Yeah, there's a lot to go through. I have some notes, and I'll do my best to not ramble too much. But yeah, let's just go. It might be a little rambly. So, yeah, some people have supposedly died from COVID-19. Some people have been supposedly infected by COVID-19. In Canada, that number is 0.2% of the population. And the median age of deaths from COVID-19 in Canada is 85. And in fact, out of the, about 10,000 deaths in Canada? 11,000 around there from COVID-19. Around 200 of those are from outside of long-term care facilities. That means the huge majority of these COVID-19 listed deaths are from long-term care facilities. And what happened at the beginning of the pandemic, when the military went into these long-term care facilities, they were finding negligence, extreme negligence, bug infestations, catheter bags not being changed, dirty dishes piled up, and call buttons not being responded to, extreme negligence. And that's the real problem here. If we look at the data, those are where the death numbers are coming from. Those are the conditions we're seeing. That is the problem. And now, in these 8 months, across the world, the elderly are dying alone. They are dying from isolation. There was a protest outside long-term care facilities, and the elderly patients holding signs saying they would rather die from COVID than loneliness. There's a woman, 90 years old, who chose a medically assisted death rather than face second lockdown. Yeah, my grandfather, his wits were no longer with him, but his body was very sound. And in my last visits to him, I could see his eyes perk up in some social interaction, particularly when his great grandchildren came to visit them. He didn't know who any of them were, but the smile that was brought out on his face by seeing them, that's oxytocin, that's healing powers. And yeah, when lockdown started and no one could visit him, no one could touch him, the desire to live wanes away, and stopped eating and passed away. And I'm just one person with one grandparent. This is happening across the world. And it's intentional. The evil agenda behind what's going on right now, they want all the old people to die because they're just a strain on the system, no money being reaped from their work anymore. They're just harvesting. And so it's very intentional that they're the ones that are dying. And the other intentional outcomes is keeping knowledge from being passed down. Historically in the indigenous cultures, the elders are who pass on the knowledge. And when the elders aren't allowed to interact with their family and the youth, they're not passing down any knowledge. That's intentional because there's a new system, one of fear and giving all control away. That's the system they're trying to embark. And the old people, they've seen some stuff. They've seen the attempts of these attacks on humanity before. Anyways, the children are being so deeply affected when we have all this uncertainty and fear. Lockdown started, we're closed for 2 weeks, and then every week, when are we going back to school? When are we going back to school? That's a lot of stress and uncertainty. And all through the summer, is school going to open in the summer? Like all that stress and uncertainty, and that has deep psychological effects when you don't have that safe, certain feeling. That is very disrupting to mental health. And lockdown began, children stayed home. A friend in Peterborough, who's a teacher, early childhood care, I could see the pain in her heart when she was telling me about how she feared for the kids who have neglectful, abusive homes. That those kids, they don't have a safe space to go to during the day. And, teachers aren't able to say, that child is starving, they don't have any food, or they haven't bathed, or they don't have clothes. Like, unless kids weren't going to school, all that got missed. And now schools are reopened. And little girl Callie, on the first day of school, she was afraid that she would accidentally give a friend a hug and get in trouble for that. And Liz at Dundas Valley School, 13 years old, told me about how many adults are calling and reporting children being too close together, sharing a pizza or a meal at lunch. And she says that's happening all the time. People are calling, reporting children being too close together. how do people not understand how terrible that is, and the fact that the children, they're afraid to be near their grandparents because they think they have something inherently wrong with them, that they might be spreading something dangerous that's going to kill people. How do you not understand how terrible that is, that children have that feeling in them, that they have something wrong with them, that's going to have devastating psychological effects, as well as, oh, mom and dad put masks on, they put masks on me. I don't really understand why, but I'm just going to do it because the government and the TV are telling me I need to do this. Teaching that in deep psychological comply, comply, comply. Not teaching critical thinking. That's why children are being masked. Children are unable to learn facial expressions. We know that 80 to 90% of communication is body language, and how much of that is in the face that they're missing out on from their teachers and caregivers. And how about not really being able to see people's identity? The kids look up and they see a sea of masks. They don't see different people. Not being able to share smiles. What does that do to our psychology? The masks, they increase anxiety. They're scary. My niece Elise, for starting daycare again and seeing the caregivers in masks and face shields, it was scary because masks are used for anonymity in crime. It's a scary thing to hide our humanity. And they decrease oxygen. I'll never accept someone saying that they don't decrease oxygen. Simple logic. Increase in CO2 directly in front of my face must mean a decrease in O2. That's very, very basic logic. Anyways, well, I'll move on to the mentally ill and the addicted, people suffering with addictions. Those who are making progress in their mental health and addictions, all that regressed with lockdown. All the groups and programs were canceled. And eventually some were moved online. But a lot of people with mental illness and addictions are homeless and don't have financial means, so they don't have phones and computers to do Zoom AA meetings. The shelters, to start, I was hearing stories that they had no soap, and some got shut down and they were just forced out. And then the downtown areas, all the public bathrooms are closed. How does it make sense to help our health that we don't have a place to relieve ourselves and wash our hands? And yet, the CERB kept flowing money for people to get alcohol and drugs. No support. The increase in suicide and drug overdose is huge. And those people with addictions and mental illness, a lot of that is undealt with trauma, and it's very hard to work on that on your own. We need support to be able to talk to people to get through that stuff. And all these people have been, with lockdown, pushed aside, pushed even farther down, pushed even farther into isolation. Small businesses, these are the basis of our society. They're our resistance to corporations. They employ families and friends in the community. They support the local economy. They were all shut down, and yet Walmart was able to stay open. How does it make sense that everyone should go shop at one store instead of having people spread out in all the different smaller stores? You know, that they're all going to one location. How does that help stop a virus? Doesn't that have more infection possibility in one place? The same as with the bathrooms, you know, when there's only one stall and one sink open as opposed to the 4 or 5 that were before, that everyone's using the same bathroom and sink. Doesn't that increase any possible chance of spreading something between each other? Where's the logic in that? How does that make sense? And how about all the canceled procedures? I've heard some stories of people who have died because they didn't have the procedure that was apparently not essential enough to stay scheduled. And the people people afraid to go to the doctor for different infections and things because they're afraid of getting the virus, or they're afraid of putting a strain. People are afraid to go to hospitals for things. The artists. There's no gallery showings, no concerts. It's artists' livelihoods, and not only their financial livelihood, but their identity, that's where their mental health stimuli comes from. Doing those performances, there's such an incredible feeling, the interaction between crowd, community, and the performer, and that's been completely attacked. Yeah, musicians are trying to adapt with this online, but it's not going to give the same rewards to both the people attending concerts and to the artists. The other countries, we're very, very lucky in Canada that lockdown hasn't been that bad yet. And that I mean, I saw videos and reports of people in countries, very big countries, India, Africa, where they were beaten in the streets for not complying with a lockdown. I saw a little interview with a man who was bringing some medicine to his brother, and he was showing the welts on his body. And in these countries, they don't have CERB. You know, when they can't go to work, when they can't go to the marketplace because everything's locked down, they can't eat, and they're starving to death. Stay home. That's what we're being told over and over again. And the people who have died, supposedly from COVID-19, their deaths have not been authenticated. And the people who love them, they're not able to grieve properly because, this virus took my family member. and that's misappropriated grief. And then, of course, there's the funeral restrictions at my grandfather's funeral. There was less than 50 people. My grandfather's children from the States were not able to come and attend. There was no hugging at the funeral. You know? It's devastating when people that we care about pass away. And we need comfort, and we seek physical comfort, most of us. And now we are too afraid to hug each other, to comfort each other. I'm not grieving properly. Myself, I recognize I'm not grieving properly because I'm so angry about the conditions surrounding my grandfather's death. I'm not even thinking, it's a pretty big thing for me to lose my last surviving grandparent. I'm not spending so much time reflecting on his life and his memories, and I'm thinking how terrible this is. This is just hitting it home for me, but I know it's happening everywhere. So, personally, I don't believe that there's one specific strain of virus that is sweeping the world. I know that coronaviruses have been around as long as humanity has, and there's a lot of suspicious things going on surrounding COVID outbreaks. In northern Italy, COVID-19 outbreak and deaths have been linked to a strain of the flu vaccine. There's direct correlation with the specific flu vaccine in northern Italy, and all those people dying. And kind of jumping around in my head here. There's a lot to go over. Stick with me. Wuhan, China, the world's first 5G city. Also, the first instance of COVID-19. There are no coincidences. Kelowna, BC, the world's second 5G test city. The week that they shut down a street for pedestrian use only and turned on the 5G, newspaper headlines that there was a COVID-19 breakout, even though the testing wasn't done. And there's a gentleman I follow, YouTube channel, Gary Fong. He documented this and had resounding complaints from people in Kelowna about experiencing aches in their joints and headaches and all this directly when the 5G was turned on. The amount of evidence supporting that there is a correlation between supposed COVID-19 breakouts, whatever, surges, and the 5G surges, it's connected. The amount of correlation, can't be coincidental. Alright, let's talk a little bit about treatments for COVID-19. So yeah, I don't believe that there's any one specific virus, but I do believe that there are treatments for coronaviruses that are very effective and proven effective. And I'll jump back. Sunnybrook did a study. They tested the blood of Kelly, who has a particular blood type, which is very, very healthy blood, and they tested the COVID-19 against it, and it did not replicate. That study's been suppressed. It's just a little side note, but 'cause I don't believe coronaviruses can manifest in bodies if we're fully healthy. But if we do get sick, there is hydroxychloroquine, which has had resoundingly successful results in patients who had COVID-19, like 100% cure rates. That's a cure, and it's also been proven that sunlight and humidity can kill the virus. Vitamin D, promoting vitamin D has been censored. YouTube's deleted videos on that since this lockdown. And I just want to do a little trail down to the attack on natural remedies. I urge everyone to look into Dr. Sebi and the work he did in natural remedies and how slandered and repressed his information was, and the curious circumstances surrounding his death. The attack on natural remedies throughout history is beyond disgusting, because the earth gives us what we need to heal. There's a remedy that grows from the earth for every ailment that we have. What it comes down to is we need to take responsibility for our own health. I believe if we have a healthy mind and we have clean water, healthy food, connect to our spirituality through meditation, then it's not possible to get sick. And when we get sick, it's our body's way of communicating with us, because the body can't just say, hey, you need to look at this, you need to stop, you need to slow down, there's something wrong going on. The body can't just say that to us, and so it presents itself in ailments. Dis-ease. There's dis-ease within the mind, the body, when we're sick. The question is, why trust the government about your health? Why trust big pharmaceutical companies? The system does not care about our well-being. Not a bit. That's the lesson, the hard lesson I learned when I was dealing with the German healthcare. But I know it's the same system. I could have had better luck with a different doctor. There are doctors who care, of course. There are people who care about people. And there are people who care about money. And the cogs in the system, they're perpetuating sickness. And they want you sick so that you give your money for these drugs and give a little bit of yourself away, more and more of your natural body. A doctor's job is to prescribe pills to make money for the big pharma system. Doctor's job is not to care for our health and well-being. A natural immunity, going over this a little bit more, can be attained through healthy eating, clean water, exercise, nature, sunlight, conscious breathing, hugging loved ones. That oxytocin is miraculous. And the government, their suggestions for immunity now is to stay indoors, wear masks, stay away from people, live in fear, snitch on those who don't, and relinquish your rights, and inject toxins. How does that make any sense? I think if anyone watched Waco documentary, to me that's an example of just showing how the government does not care about its people. Was it President Clinton, perhaps, who issued the allowance for them to go tear gas the facility of the people who, they just wanted to live their life off grid. They knowingly, he signed off on tear gassing them, knowing historically that in the event of tear gassing a building, it has always resulted in fire and death. And yet they sent no fire trucks to be on standby. No, they sent that in, and so many children and people died. To me, that's just an example of, if the president didn't care about the lives of those children in that home, why does he care about every other single person? And yeah, that's American, but here in Canada, do you truly believe that Justin Trudeau, the man who says that he admires Chinese dictatorship, do you really think he cares about your well-being? Why do they allow such things like glyphosates and all the GMOs in our food? Look, historically in Canada, what did they do to the Indigenous people? Horrific, massive genocide. Terrible abuse of the children. An attack on their culture, their spirituality, everything. Okay. The channel's gonna keep going with talking about the ways that governments and the systems behind them don't care about us and have been poisoning us. That's fluoride. Wake up. That's fluoride is poison. It's toxic. It's not naturally occurring. It's a byproduct of producing aluminum, and it's intentionally put in our water to calcify our pineal glands. Oh, fun fact. And if we look at the Georgia Guidestones, there's the agenda. Keep the population at 50 million or something. You can look into all these things. Agenda 21, 2030. The depopulation agenda. Technocracy. That's the evidence supporting that the government doesn't care about us, and yet we're being told every day, oh, this is for your safety, for your safety, for your safety, for ihrer Sicherheit. The resounding slogan from Gestapo, Nazi Germany. Social distancing is a direct violation of our ability to express love. On the Health Act for the virus right now, it says specifically, no person shall dance, sing, or perform music. Direct attack on our humanity. Okay. Oh yeah, and just a little side note, I heard the Deagle forecast in Canada, they're showing in 2025 they project to have 26 million in Canada. We're around 37 million right now. Why in 2025 are we going to go down to 26 million? Got some screenshots, evidence of that. Okay. The PCR tests are ridiculous. They don't test for anything. So I started making all my notes here, and this morning I found out that the Global Alliance of Doctors, along with the what is it, ACU, the Extra Parliamentary COVID Inquiry Committee. So committees of thousands and thousands of doctors have come together and made a global corona report, which I very much suggest going and looking through. It's, can better lay out than I can rambling here some of the stuff going on, but the designer of the PCR tests himself is quoted as saying that the COVID-19 is just hysteria driven by the media. The spin speed of the tests is wrong. It's supposed to be around 35 to detect anything. They're just spinning around 40. Don't quote me exactly on those numbers, but it's the CDC. So many places have admittedly reported that it's up to 90% at least false positives. So what are the tests saying? They're being used for a casedemic to make fear. Oh, there's cases, we better shut down. But the cases don't mean anything because the tests are faulty. They're picking up old viruses, antibodies, any sort of coronavirus, which our bodies fight all the time. The president of Tanzania, he tested a sheep, a goat, and a pawpaw, and they tested positive. And so he said, yeah, I'm not using your crooked tests. We have to think who profits. Who profits from all these tests? China. They're selling the tests. At least some of them that I've come across a resounding number. Yep, can look into that. Why are they putting a Q-tip up your nose all the way back? Why? Why, when this virus is supposedly so highly infectious that we need to wear a mask to make sure that no droplets come out at any time, why can't they just swab in the mouth? Why going up the nose? That doesn't make sense. Yeah, I've seen evidence of vaccines that are, what's the word? When you give it to someone, distributed, vaccines that can be distributed through a nasal swab that exists. So I don't know if people have been tested have already been given something. I don't know. I don't know if they've just been collecting DNA because they have so much going on with the vaccine that they might have to have different strains of the vaccine for different people with different DNA types. And so if they already have your DNA information, there's a lot of theories behind why they're sticking a Q-tip up your nose. But for me, it's enough of a red flag to be like, no, I will never ever get tested because the tests are proven false. And it doesn't make sense that they need to shove a Q-tip up your nose. So something doesn't make sense. There's a reason why, and something to look into. Very interesting. Flu cases are down 98%. Yeah, there's only 6 cases in Canada between the last year, supposedly. I've got links for this stuff. Stats Canada, stats internationally, there are no greater death numbers than pop.